Parshas vaeschanan, Perek Vav, Pasuk Hey. V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshcha b'chol maidecha. You shall love your God with all of your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Rashi brings down the Medrash, the Sifri. Asay dvarav me'ahava. Why is Hashem commanding us? V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, commanding you to love Him. Why? He's saying you should work on yourself to fulfill His commandments out of love. You cannot compare somebody who is doing something out of love or out of fear. Somebody who serves his master out of fear, somebody who serves his master out of fear, if the master troubles him too much, then he leaves him and goes away. So the Medrash is saying that Hashem is telling you, with God, you could fear me. We have every reason to have fear of Hashem. There's nobody stronger. And still Hashem says, I know that if our relationship is based on fear, if something happens and you get troubled by me, you're going to leave me. So please work on serving me out of love, even though you should fear me. When there's a Rebbe, when there's a parent, maybe you can put fear into the Talmud or the student or the child. When I say maybe, you really can't. It doesn't work anymore. It's been proven, and all the tzaddikim say doesn't exist. Rabbi Yashiv Zatzal, who was very old, and he said, today there's no small doicha, just Yamin Mekarev. And they said, like, none? So he said, maybe once in, there's two times he told his grandson, maybe once in 70 years, you can give a push away. And Rabbi Yashiv was strict halacha. He wasn't this mushy-gushy guy. But he was talking, you have to know the dar, you have to know, like the Nesiv Shalom says, Chanoich l'nar al pi darkoi, right? You can't just do chinuch on every kid themselves. You have to know each child. He says, Chanoich l'dar al pi darkoi. You have to know the generation. People who use tools from a previous generation, it doesn't work. As by Yibadul Chaim Taiva, as by Rabbi Gershon Edelstein Shlita or Shima of Panovich. And he said, Haintin itok ad smeil decha. Today, there's no concept that I'm going to be a Rebbe or a parent. I'm going to be like, you know. He says, it doesn't exist. I asked him, even a regular kid? He didn't say, oh, regular. He said, you have to watch the video. He's like, well, if the kid understands that you're right for being upset at him, I mean, come on. Who's punishing their kid and the kid is understanding, you know? It's just using frustration and all that. He says, today it doesn't exist. So you can't even really give fear into children and students in our dar because they're just fearless. There's no fear. There's no, every example is a mashal of a king. There's no king. People are not even scared. When we grew up, we were scared of cops. Today, kids, younger guys, they're not scared of police. What do you mean? The guy's not going to touch me. There's no fear. But even if you have a choice that you can get your kid or your student to serve you out of fear, says the Medrash Sifri, thousands of years ago, not a good idea. Because if your relationship is with love, they will always stick with you. But if the relationship is based on fear, you could lose a kid like that. So that's why the Torah tells us, Hashem says, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. Make sure you serve me out of love. What does that say about us when we're raising kids? Yeah, you can scream at your kids, you can instill the fear of God in them. Like I said, you really can't. They're not, it's like I always say, when we were kids, you did something wrong, you got a look from your parents, that's it was over, right? You got a look. Today, you give that look, it doesn't work. You give it a few times, harder, and the kids say, what's wrong with your eyes? Like, what's wrong with your face? Like, what are you doing? Like, it just doesn't work. You don't have to be a genius to realize that the tools of 50 years ago don't work today at all. But even if you can be that fearful person, you're hurting your kids. I was on the phone with parents, and the kid ended up doing something wrong, and very wrong. And the kid called the mother and said, this is what happened to me and I need your help. But I'm scared. I'm scared to tell Tati, Abba, Daddy. I'm scared to tell him. And this is a family trying to build NKN, nafshik shur b'nafshik, to save their child, a child who's already off the derech, a child who's already was through all of those terrible situations. And we're trying to pull in this kid, and the kid is scared, right? That's how they lost their kid, because his relationship with this kid was based on fear. And when something went wrong, she dropped him. She moved out, ran away. And now, even after supposedly listening to my advice, supposedly the kid is scared of you, you have zero NKN. Because fear is the opposite of what we're trying to do. It gets in the way. If I'm scared of you, that's not the relationship we need to build with our sick children, and it's not the relationship that the Gedolim are saying to build with our healthy children and our students. Unbelievable. Sifri.